North Carolina is a state that knows how to present itself. There is the Blue Ridge Parkway at Autumn Peak. There are the Wright Brothers at Kitty Hawk. There is the Outer Banks, which has been selling postcards of itself for a century. Tourism boards have done excellent work. That is the front of the brochure. This video is about the back of it. We're going to look at a circle of bare earth in a Chatham County pine forest where the soil tests come back clean and nothing has grown in recorded memory. A mountain ridge where the U.S. Geological Survey showed up twice and left with no answers. A boulder covered in 1,548 carvings that match rock art in Scotland, which no one has been able to explain. And a mound that the Cherokee say is inhabited by invisible warriors who have never lost a fight. Make sure you stay until the end, because number 1 on this list is the entry that stayed with us longest, and it just got a new layer in 2025. If this is the kind of North Carolina that never made it into a travel guide, subscribe. We find this every week. Today we are counting down 17 ancient sites in North Carolina that historians can't explain. Number 17. The Devil's Tramping Ground, Chatham County. Here is what the site looks like. A perfect circle of bare earth, 40 feet across, in a forest clearing off a state road in the North Carolina Piedmont. The surrounding ground is covered in normal forest vegetation. The path itself, roughly a foot wide, running the circumference of the circle, has no vegetation at all. No grass, no weeds, no roots. The inside of the circle has a thin, wiry growth. The path has nothing. Scientists have tested the soil for salt, for acid, for toxins. Nothing abnormal comes back. The site has been known since at least the colonial era. Written records document it from 1882. The working cattle farm it sits on has been in the same family for over 100 years. The current owner confirms the circle has not changed. Locals say anything left in the path overnight is cleared away by morning. Multiple men have reportedly attempted to spend the night inside it. Locals say not one of them succeeded and remained sane. The soil tests say there is nothing wrong with the earth. It is open to visitors, just across a short walk from the highway. Number 16. The Brown Mountain Lights, Burke and Caldwell counties. Brown Mountain sits about 2,600 feet above sea level in the foothills of the Blue Ridge. The mountain itself is unremarkable. What happens above it is not. Since at least 1833, and possibly much longer, people have reported unexplained reddish, bluish, and yellowish lights appearing low over the mountain, rising, lingering, then disappearing. The lights have been documented by the Charlotte Daily Observer, investigated by the U.S. Geological Survey in 1922, investigated again in the 1970s, and captured in 6. 300 hours of camera footage installed by an Appalachian State University astronomy professor without producing a definitive explanation. When the Ustras first investigated, they concluded the lights were train headlights and brush fires. Then the railway washed out in a flood. The train stopped running. The lights continued. Cherokee tradition says the lights are the spirits of women searching the mountain for husbands killed in a great battle around AD 1200. An Appalachian State professor spent years studying them and settled on ball lightning as his best working theory. He cannot confirm it. In 1965, a furniture salesman from Linville Gorge claimed one of the lights led him to a cave, introduced itself as a gas-based life form from Venus, and took him there. He published a 28-page pamphlet about it. The Brown Mountain overlook on Highway 181 is still open. The lights are still reported. Number 15. The Moon-Eyed People Effigy, Murphy, Cherokee County. In 1841, a farmer clearing land along a riverbank in Murphy pulled a strange object from the riverbed. It was a 3-foot soapstone and talc statue depicting 2 entwined humanoid figures with flat faces and enormous oval crescent-shaped eyes. It was not carved, it was pecked, meaning someone struck stone against stone repeatedly to form it. That technique is considered older than Cherokee craftsmanship. The statue matches a description that had been in print since 1797. That year, A naturalist named Benjamin Smith Barton documented a Cherokee oral tradition about a people who had lived in the southern Appalachians before them. Small, pale-skinned, light-haired, nocturnal, with large blue eyes so sensitive to light they could only come out after dark. The Cherokee called them the moon-eyed people, and said they eventually drove them out, during a full moon, when even moonlight could blind them. Here is the thing about the moon-eyed people. The Cherokee never claimed to have built their stone forts. They only said the moon-eyed people built them. Cherokee oral history itself points to a pre-Cherokee civilization in the Appalachians that no archaeologist has ever positively identified. The statue is at the Cherokee County Historical Museum in Murphy. It is not a dramatic display. It sits quietly in a case, and the eyes look up at you. Number 14. Moro Mountain and the Hardaway Site. Stanley County. The Uwharrie Mountains of central North Carolina are some of the oldest in North America. Geologists put them at over 500 million years old. They have been worn down to gentle, rolling hills. Somewhere in those hills, in the Piedmont east of Charlotte, there is a ridge above a river bend that people have been returning to for at least 12,000 years. The draw was rhyolite, a fine-grained volcanic rock that occurs in outcrops at Moro Mountain, perfect for making cutting tools. Ancient people quarried it so thoroughly that today the mountain face is littered with debris from heaps of workstone visible in erosional gullies. Rhyolite flake artifacts from this mountain have been found in a 200-mile radius across the Piedmont. The Hardaway site, just below, is the oldest excavated archaeological site in North Carolina. Excavations beginning in 1938 under archaeologist Joffer Coe produced the foundational chronological sequence for all southeastern prehistory, the naming framework archaeologists still use. The site logged at least 12 distinct cultural occupations. Over 15 tons of artifacts and stone debris from Hardaway are now in storage at Unk Chapel Hill. Archaeologist Randy Daniel has said there may be stone points in that archive that predate Clovis, potentially among the oldest human tools ever found in the eastern United States. They have not been identified yet. Number 13. Lake Phelps. Washington County. Lake Phelps is the second largest natural lake in North Carolina, 16,600 acres, shallow, remarkably clear. It sits on a vast coastal plain peninsula between the Albemarle Sound and the Pamlico River. Scientists have studied how it formed for decades. They do not agree. The theories include underground springs, wind and wave action, meteor showers, peat fires, and glacial activity. None has been universally accepted. The lake is believed to be at least 38,000 years old, and its origin remains an open question. That is the first unexplained thing at Lake Phelps. In 1984, a series of wildfires burned through the area and dropped the lake's water level. Fishermen started noticing things on the lake bottom through the shallow clear water: pottery, stone objects. By November 1985, park personnel found the first of what would eventually total 30 dugout canoes, scattered along the northern and western shoreline in association with the sites where they were made, used, and abandoned. The oldest of the 30 was radiocarbon dated to approximately 2400 BC, more than 4,400 years old. The longest is 37 feet, the longest Native American dugout canoe documented in the southeastern United States. Human artifacts at the lake span 11,000 years of continuous occupation. Most of the canoes were reburied in the lake to protect them from deteriorating in open air. A National Geographic-sponsored radar survey in 1992 found evidence of additional canoes in unsurveyed areas. 4 were recovered and conserved. 2 are on display at Pettigrew State Park. 1 is at the NC Museum of History in Raleigh. Before European settlers found the lake in 1755, they called the surrounding swamp the Great Eastern Dismal and refused to enter it. The lake had been sitting there for 38,000 years, holding 4,000-year-old boats. The mystery was always going to wait. Number 12. The Biltmore Mound. Asheville, Buncombe County. The Biltmore estate receives millions of visitors a year. They come for the house, the largest private residence in the United States, built by George Vanderbilt in the 1890s. The house is the point. The mound is not the point. In the estate's hayfields, approximately 18 inches high and 50 feet across, is an 1,800-year-old Native American ceremonial mound attributed to the Kanoes culture, who were contemporaries of the Hopewell people in Ohio. Excavations in 2003 found evidence of multi-day communal feasting, long-distance trade goods including copper, possibly from the Ohio River Valley, and a central post hole that archaeologists believe may represent a cosmological pole connecting multiple worlds. 9 distinct phases of occupation have been identified. The mound is included on some educational tours of the estate. Most visitors walk past it on the way to the house. Number 11. Town Creek Indian Mound. Montgomery County. What the PD culture built at Town Creek is well understood in physical terms. They constructed a platform mound, a mortuary house, a sacred square, and a defensive wooden palisade on a low rise above the Little River floodplain in central North Carolina. The site was a ceremonial center, active from approximately AD 1000 to 1400. Archaeologists have identified 563 graves. A few individuals were buried with copper-covered ear spools, conch shell pendants, and carved rattles, indicating a ranked society with an elite class. Their most important annual ceremony involved communal bathing, fasting, and lighting a new sacred fire from which every household would take embers home. They called themselves, in effect, people of one fire. What is not understood is why they left. They were gone before Europeans arrived to ask. The palisade had been rebuilt at least 5 times during their 400 years. Suggesting whatever serenity their ceremony implied, real threats existed. Then the whole community went. They likely merged into the Kituwah nation, but the PD as a distinct group disappeared from history without a written word of explanation. The mound, temple, burial house, and palisade have been reconstructed at the State Historic Site and are open to visitors. The museum is on site. The site itself is free. Number 10. The Berry Site. Fort San Juan, Burke County. Most people who learn American history learn that Roanoke Colony in 1587 was England's first attempt to settle the continent's interior. That is close to accurate, but not quite right. Because 20 years before Roanoke, a Spanish captain named Juan built a fort in the mountains of western North Carolina, and the fort was burned to the ground within 18 months. And then the location was lost for 400 years. In January 1567, Pardo marched inland from the South Carolina coast and arrived at a large indigenous town called Juarra in what is now Burke County. He left 30 soldiers there, the first European garrison in the interior of the present-day United States, predating Jamestown by 40 years. The soldiers were dependent on the Juarra people for food and survival. For 18 months, both groups coexisted. Then, in the spring of 1568, the Juarra and surrounding peoples rose up, burned Fort San Juan and 5 other Spanish forts Pardo had established, and killed all the soldiers except one. The Spanish never came back. The location of the fort was forgotten. No written account from the perspective of the Juarra survives, and what happened in those 18 months remains unexplained. Excavations at the Berry Site in Burke County began in the 1980s. In 2013, archaeologists from the University of Michigan, Tulane, and Warren Wilson College announced definitive confirmation. A defensive moat and burned hut remains. Unmistakably 16th century Spanish. Here is the wild part. For 4 centuries, North Carolina history classes taught that Roanoke Colony was the first settlement attempt in the region. There was already a burned Spanish fort 80 miles to the west. Nobody knew. If you are enjoying the parts of North Carolina that never made it into a textbook, give the video a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments, have you ever come across a site like this without expecting it? Number 9. Nikwasi Mound. Franklin, Macon County. On East Main Street in the town of Franklin, on a small grassy rise beside a U.S. highway, is a platform mound that is 800 to 900 years old. Cars pass it every day. Most drivers do not know it is there. The mound has never been fully excavated. The only formal archaeological investigation was a single 5x5-foot test shaft dug in 1963. A 2009 ground-penetrating radar survey revealed that the base is covered by 1 to 2 meters of alluvial and man-made fill, and that the summit was the location of a Cherokee communal townhouse. That is most of what the instruments have told us. The interior remains unknown. The Cherokee themselves did not claim to have built Nikwasi. They said it was built by an earlier people, and that they only maintained and used it. They kept an ever-burning sacred fire on the summit. In the 1890s, anthropologist James Mooney documented the Cherokee tradition that the mound is inhabited by the Nunehai, invisible, immortal warrior spirits who have emerged to defend the community in every crisis. When enemies attacked Nikwasi, the Nunehai poured out of the mound by the hundreds, becoming invisible once they left the settlement, their arrows striking enemies who could see nothing coming. During the Civil War, according to the tradition, a Union raiding party approached Franklin, saw the town heavily defended by soldiers, and retreated. There were no soldiers there. The Cherokee never claimed credit for repelling those attacks. They said it was the mound. On February 26, 2026, the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians officially regained ownership of Nikwasi Mound after more than 200 years of separation. The Franklin Town Council voted to return it. The mound has a small park and interpretive signage. Traffic still passes on the highway. Most of it still does not stop. Number 8. Kituwah Mound, Swain County. 7 miles outside of Bryson City, on the bottomland of the Tuckasegee River, is a low rise in a flat green field. From the road, it reads as barely a hill, 5 feet high, about 170 feet across. That is what 2 centuries of plowing does to something. All 3 federally recognized Cherokee nations consider this the origin place of their people. Not a significant site, not a sacred site, the origin place where the Cherokee people and their culture began. Archaeological evidence dates occupation here to approximately 10,000 years ago. The mound itself was built around AD 1000. A sacred fire was kept burning perpetually on the summit, maintained by a designated firekeeper, and every Cherokee community in the mountains sent emissaries to carry embers from this fire back to light their own hearths. One flame spread across an entire nation. In 1820, the U.S. government forced the Cherokee to cede the land in a treaty. The mound passed to private ownership and eventually became part of a family farm. For 176 years, the Ferguson family grew corn on it, plowed it every season, and reduced a 20-foot ceremonial mound to a bump. A 1997 gradiometer survey of the site revealed 15 confirmed burials. Archaeologists estimate there may be more than 1,000 graves beneath the soil. The Eastern Band of Cherokee purchased the 309-acre site in 1996. In 2021, Kituwah was placed into federal trust, sovereign Cherokee territory for the first time in nearly 200 years. A children's garden now occupies part of the land. For over 176 years, the most sacred site in Cherokee culture was a cornfield. It took that long to get it back. Number 7. Fort Raleigh National Historic Site, Roanoke Island, Dare County. In August 1587, 117 English men, women, and children settled on Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina. Among them was Virginia Dare, born on August 18th of that year, the first English child born in the Americas. Her grandfather was John White, the colony's governor. 9 days after her birth, White sailed back to England for supplies. A war with Spain made return impossible for 3 years. When he arrived back at Roanoke in 1590, the settlement was gone. The structures had been dismantled. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle. There was one word carved into a fence post: Croatoan. The letters Crow were carved into a tree, White and the colonists had agreed beforehand. If they left, they would carve their destination. If they left in fear, they would add a cross. There was no cross. White believed they had gone to Croatoan Island, now Hatteras Island, voluntarily. A storm drove his ship away before he could look. He went back to England. He never returned to America. In 2025, the Croatoan Archaeological Society excavated 2 piles of iron hammer scale on Hatteras Island, buried beneath material dated to the late 16th or early 17th century. Hammer scale is a byproduct of blacksmithing. Native Americans did not smelt iron. Someone at the Croatoan village had been forging metal objects. Meanwhile, a hidden fort symbol on a 1585 John White map, only visible under backlighting, discovered at the British Museum in the 21st century, had already guided another team to an inland site in Bertie County, where 16th century English pottery was found. 2 teams, 2 directions, 1 word carved in wood. 440 years and counting. Number 6. The Garden Creek Mounds, Haywood County. In a mountain valley near the town of Clyde, in the western part of the state, 2 earthen mounds occupy the same patch of ground. This is unusual not because mounds are rare in North Carolina. There are dozens. But because these 2 mounds were built by 2 completely different cultures, centuries apart, who apparently chose the same specific location in the valley for reasons that neither left a record of. Mound 2 at Garden Creek is the older of the 2, a Conestee phase structure, attributed to a Middle Woodland culture active from roughly AD 100 to 700, with connections to the Hopewell ceremonial network centered in Ohio. Mound 1 is a later Pisgah phase structure from the Mississippian period. The 2 cultures had different pottery, different burial practices, different trade networks, and different relationships to the landscape. Both of them built here. Whether that was coincidence, cultural memory of a sacred location, or recognition of something about the specific valley that archaeology has not yet identified. No one knows. The mounds are present, but not a developed visitor site. Academic research continues. Number 5. Judaculla Rock, Jackson County. In a pasture in a mountain valley near Cullowhee, there is a soapstone boulder approximately 240 square feet in surface area. A minimum count of the carvings on its surface reveals 1,548 identifiable motifs, making it the largest petroglyph boulder east of the Mississippi River, 3,007 times the motif count of the next closest comparable site. The quarrying of this rock began between 2000 and 1000 BC. The carvings themselves were added between roughly 200 CE and 1400 CE, nearly 1200 years of intermittent inscription. No one knows what any of them definitively mean. Cherokee tradition attributes the rock to Judaculla, Sulkalu, a giant deity with 7 fingers on each hand who leaped from Devil's Courthouse Mountain and landed here, his handprint pressing into the then soft stone. A researcher at Western Carolina University has argued that sections of the rock depict Cherokee cosmology, including a possible solar eclipse. A 19th century Cherokee chief believed the carvings recorded a peace treaty. Ice Age theorists believe the site predates Cherokee occupation entirely. None of these interpretations has been accepted as definitive. Here is the detail that stops people cold. The specific cup marks and cup and ring motifs that appear repeatedly on this boulder appear on hundreds of prehistoric stones in Scotland. Identical patterns. Different continents. No explanation has been offered that satisfies anyone. The rock was also published upside down by researchers for decades. After the correct orientation was established, the symbols still could not be read. Cherokee elders still fast at the site, hoping the message will become clear. The site is open to the public, free of charge, dawn to dusk. A viewing platform circles part of the boulder. 2 companion boulders that may have formed part of the same symbolic complex are underground, buried, one in a mining accident. Whatever they say has not been accessible in a long time. Number 4. The Hardaway Blade Question, Stanley County. When archaeologist Joffre Coe began excavating the Hardaway site in 1938, he found layer after layer of human occupation going down through the soil. The deepest layers contained a type of projectile point, unlike anything previously documented, small, unusual, and not easily matched to known Paleo-Indian tool traditions. He named them Hardaway blades. Dating them precisely was impossible. The soil yielded no datable organic material, and the debate about what exactly Hardaway blades represent has continued for decades. Some archaeologists place them in the Paleo-Indian period, around 9500 to 7500 BC. Others argue they may be older than Clovis, older than the dominant theory of when humans first arrived in the Eastern Americas. The site shows at least 12 distinct cultural occupations over more than 12,000 years. More than 15 tons of artifacts from Hardaway are in storage at Unk Chapel Hill, and archaeologist Randy Daniel has said that among them, undiscovered points may exist that predate anything currently accepted in the literature. The soil may hold evidence that changes what we think we know. No one has confirmed it yet. Number 3. Site X. Bertie County. There is a map in the British Museum's collection. It was drawn in 1585 by John White, the same John White who would later serve as governor of Roanoke Colony. The map is titled La Virginia Pars. It shows the coast of present-day North Carolina in careful, detailed watercolor. It has been in museum collections for centuries. In the 21st century, a researcher examining the map under backlighting noticed something under the paint. A patch, a painted-over area along the western edge of the map, was concealing a symbol beneath it. A fort symbol, drawn by White himself, then deliberately hidden under paint. The symbol pointed to an inland location, approximately 50 miles northwest of Roanoke Island, near the Albemarle Sound in Bertie County. Archaeologists from the First Colony Foundation excavated the site they call Site X. They found 16th century English borderware pottery, the same style found at Roanoke Island and at early Jamestown. Borderware was no longer imported to the New World after the Virginia Company dissolved in the early 17th century. The pottery at Site X arrived with people from the late 1500s. Excavations resumed in 2024 and found additional ceramics. The interpretation, before John White sailed back to England in 1587, the colonists had already identified an inland location to retreat to. They knew the plan. White drew it on the map, then covered it, possibly to prevent the Spanish from finding where his people would go. John White apparently concealed his colonists' escape route on his own map, under a layer of paint, and that layer of paint held for 440 years. Site X is an active excavation site. Its precise location is not publicly disclosed. What remains there, and what happened to the people who went there, is still being determined. Number 2. The Rock Art Network. Western North Carolina. More than 50 rock art sites have been documented across North Carolina. 70 or more are known in the western mountain region alone. Most are unmarked, inaccessible, and have never been studied in depth. The motifs, circles, cupules, wavy lines, figures, appear to follow patterns, clustering at trail junctions and water crossings, sharing vocabulary across hundreds of miles. What the vocabulary means has not been decoded. 2 of the boulders that archaeologists believe formed a related symbolic complex with Judaculla rock are currently underground, buried. One was buried in a mining accident. The other is presumed to also be beneath the surface. Whatever they say, and however they relate to the 1,548 visible symbols at Judaculla, is inaccessible. The NC Rock Art Project continues to document sites before erosion, development, or accidents take more of them. The message may already be incomplete. Number 1. Roanoke Island. Hatteras Island. Bertie County. North Carolina, 1587. Stand at Fort Raleigh on Roanoke Island on a fall evening. The light goes through the live oaks at a low angle. The earthworks of the original 1580s English settlement are visible, low mounds of raised ground that managed to survive 4.5 centuries. The Albemarle sound is audible through the trees. If you are here in summer, the Waterside Theater is visible through the pines, where an outdoor drama about the lost colonists has been performed every year since 1937. There is a monument to Virginia Dare. She was 9 days old the last time anyone from England who knew her saw her. Her grandfather John White held her and then boarded a ship. He could not come back for 3 years. Spain and England were at war. When he returned in August 1590, the settlement was empty. The colonists' homes had been dismantled, not ransacked. There were no bodies. There were no signs of violence. There was a fence post with a word carved into it, Croatoan. There were letters on a tree, Crow. White had agreed with the colonists beforehand. Carve your destination and add a cross if you left in danger. There was no cross. He thought they had gone to Croatoan Island voluntarily and survived. He tried to go there. A storm pushed his ship back. He went home to England. He never came back. He died without knowing. The investigation that followed, and has never stopped, now spans 440 years, 3 active archaeological excavation sites, and 2 competing teams reaching opposite conclusions about where the colonists went. In May 2025, archaeologists on Hatteras Island, the former Croatoan Island, excavated iron hammer scale from layers dated to the late 16th or early 17th century. Hammer scale is what you produce when you work iron. English settlers knew ironworking. Native Croatoan people did not smelt iron. Kathleen Duval of Unsea said the discovery supports the theory that some colonists reached Hatteras. Another archaeologist said she would have expected additional forged byproducts and found the interpretation premature. Meanwhile, the First Colony Foundation continued work at Site X in Bertie County, the inland location identified through the hidden fort symbol on White's map. Additional 16th century English pottery was recovered in 2024. The 2 findings are not necessarily contradictory. James Horn of the First Colony Foundation suggested a small group may have gone to Croatoan to wait for White, while the remainder moved inland. They split. Some went one way, some went another. Both groups left traces. Neither group ever came back to England. John Lawson, exploring the area in 1701, more than 100 years after the colony disappeared, encountered Hatteras Indians who told him that several of their ancestors had been white people who could read. Virginia Dare would be approximately 440 years old. We still don't know what happened to her. That is the brochure's longest omission. The brochure is not wrong, it just leaves a lot out. If this list had a personal favorite, it is number 9, Nikwasi Mound. A 1,000-year-old site beside a highway in a small mountain town with invisible warriors inside it that just came home in 2026. That one earned its place. Which entry on this list surprised you most? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more of this kind of history, subscribe. It is what we do.